So the goal of this class is for you to proactively consider self-defense, to feel empowered and confident, and to have tools at your disposal to make sure that you are safe, you feel safe and comfortable. And this is all types of safety. So physical safety, mental safety, psychological safety, all of it. So I want to recap what we did last week. So this is class 2. Last week we started off talking about the sympathetic nervous system. So how bodies in general respond to stress. And we talked a lot about awareness and choice. So being aware of how your body responds to stress, being able to slow down enough so that you can choose something different if you deem it appropriate. Then we moved into some physical self-defense techniques, and then we ended talking about and practicing some nervous system regulation after a situation, but also things to practice just day to day, so that you can have that tool to help calm yourself down, to stay steady, so that you can make the best choice for you. So the structure of this class is going to be the same. We're going to be talking, then we're going to be doing, then we're going to be talking again. So because this is, well, not just because this is just a class that we're teaching, safety, comfortability, we want to make sure that you feel safe and comfortable in this class as well, in general. So if at any point you feel uncomfortable, something's triggering you, you feel a little activated, take a break. Listen to your body, do what you need to do. You can pause the video, you can always come back to the replay, whatever you need to do. Listen to your body, because this is for you. So today we are going to dive a little bit more into situational awareness. So what to look out for so that you can stay safe and comfortable. What to look out for kind of in your situation, in your environment. So the two questions that I want to get into in this first section is, one, how do I cultivate body awareness to know when I am uncomfortable? And two, how can I act in a way that makes me more comfortable or safe and enables me to develop a deeper awareness of the situation? So first, let's recap a little bit of what we talked about last week. So the sympathetic nervous system, we talked about the 5 Fs. So this is the 5 fight or flight responses, the stress responses. So let's just go over what those were again. So we have the fight response, which would be getting angry, physically fighting somebody or wanting to fight somebody, kind of more aggressive, confrontational behavior. Then we have flight, which would be avoidance, running away from a situation, turning away, avoiding eye contact, that sort of thing. We have freeze, which is freezing. So not moving, not being able to take action, not being able to think clearly, that sort of thing. Then we have flop, which is more of kind of collapsing, so kind of muscle weakness can happen, kind of submitting to the situation. And then we have fawn, which is appealing to another person, trying to please another person in order to avoid harm. And I want to just remind all of us, reiterate, that none of these responses are bad. They are all our body's way of protecting us, and they all have their time where they are most effective, and you'll see that you use all of these 5 responses. So hopefully you were able to take some time and identify your patterns, how your body responds to stress, maybe which of these 5 Fs is your go-to. Kind of identifying the different levels, how your body responds to acute stress versus chronic stress, that sort of thing. And then we talked about the importance of noticing when your body may be perceiving a threat really early on in that process so that you have time to choose how you want to respond. So situational awareness, it's really important to know because you are part of your environment, right? Situational awareness is not just what's going on outside of you, it also includes what's going on inside of you. So what are your boundaries? Are you comfortable? Do you feel safe? It's really important that we are able to answer those questions for ourselves. So last week, Jen mentioned that the majority of women who are assaulted know their perpetrator. And so, yes, of course, it is important to be aware of our surroundings when we're out in the world, when we're interacting with strangers. It's important to pay attention to signs of aggression, unpredictability, unwanted attention, stuff like that. But it is so, so important to know yourself and to know your own boundaries, to be able to pick up on your own instincts of when your body feels unsafe and when it feels uncomfortable. Let your body be a sensor. Trust yourself to pick up on those red flags, to pick up on those yellow flags that eventually turn into red flags, right? So especially when it comes to family, friends, and people you know, it's really important that we can tune in to that gut instinct and to that internal knowing. Because our bodies, they're information sensing machines, right? And our bodies know stuff way before our brains know it. Our bodies might know stuff in spite of what our brain is saying. So especially, when it comes to people that we know, like your body can tell you that something's wrong, even when your brain might be going like, oh, but it's cousin Jack, oh, they didn't mean it. And I can give you a personal example. There was something that happened to me that my brain was like, oh, this isn't a big deal. But then the next day my body was telling me, no, this was a big deal, because I noticed myself taking really deep breaths. And I was like, why is this happening? Why am I taking deep breaths? I wasn't trying to. But it was my body trying to calm itself down. And so my brain didn't even realize that my body was activated, but my body did, and it started doing stuff. And that reminds me, actually, I wanted to go over a couple more indicators that are not necessarily, we don't need to tie them to a particular F, but just other things that you can look out for to let you know maybe after a situation that was stressful for you. So heart racing, heart beating really fast, taking those big deep breaths. Sometimes it can show up as a sudden change in temperature. So maybe all of a sudden you get really cold, you kind of feel the blood like rush from your head, or all of a sudden you get really hot. So, we want to start to identify those things in our bodies. So how can we strengthen the communication between our bodies and ourselves? So last week's homework is obviously going to help with that, right? Going back through some memories, writing down different ways in which you responded to stress, starting to notice your stress responses in the moment. That is absolutely going to help strengthen this communication, this dialogue between you and your body. But I want to do an exercise together, and you can do this anytime. We're going to do it all together. But first, we have to ground into our bodies. We have to center ourselves. So let's take some deep breaths together. So breathing in through the nose and breathing out through the mouth. Ideally, your out breath is going to be a little longer than your in breath. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. Very nice. So for this exercise, we're actually just going to ask our bodies some yes or no questions. So I'm going to start simple. I'm going to start easy. Is my name Rachel? Yes or no? Yes. I can kind of feel into what that feels like. Yes, my name is Rachel. We can try, so do that with your own name. Yeah. And then we can try another question. Am I hungry right now? Yes or no? Yeah, a little bit. Okay. Am I comfortable right now? In my body, Am I comfortable? Yeah. Yeah. Let's try another question. Actually, I'm going to have us work outside of ourselves a little bit. So I'm actually going to have Connie come up and help me. So am I comfortable? Let's kind of build off of that. So I'm comfortable within myself, yeah, but let's test what happens when we bring another person in. So I'm actually going to have Connie stand about like 6 feet away from me. Okay, and I'm going to ask the question, am I comfortable with how far away Connie is from me right now? Yes. Okay, and if Connie could take 1 step forward and stop. Okay, I'm going to ask the question again. Am I comfortable with how far away Connie is from me right now? Yes. And 1 more step forward. Am I comfortable? Still a yes, but I can feel that it's getting a little bit towards the no. And Connie's my friend, so like, of course I'm comfortable, but I'm starting to notice the bubble, right? So she takes another step forward. Am I comfortable? Not really, right? So that's a little too close. So you can practice that with a family member, with a friend, and just practice, okay, am I comfortable, yes or no? And if she gets really close to me again, I can take a second, right? Especially when you're practicing with somebody that you know and somebody that you trust. I don't have to answer right away. I can close my eyes, I can take a deep breath, because they're helping you with this exercise. They know that you're doing this, right? So I can take a breath. Am I comfortable? Yes or no? Yeah, and then you can have a clear answer, giving yourself that space and time. Thank you. So I often get asked, what is the difference? How can you tell the difference between anxiety and intuition? And for me, what I experience this as, and what I've been told other people experience this as, is anxiety tends to be very up in your head. The energy is very up here, and it's very chaotic. It's very like, and what if this happens? And then what if this happens? And there's a lot of words, right? But intuition tends to be deeper in our bodies. It's more grounded, and it is going to be closer to that yes or no. So that's kind of how you can tell the difference. The intuition is a lot more calm, even if it's in a not calm situation, right? You might be in chaos, but that inner voice is going to be pretty steady. So that's how you can kind of tell the difference between what is anxiety, what is that inner knowing. So practice asking these yes or no questions with everything, and create that time to answer, right? You can pause, you can take the deep breath. And if you're, interacting, let's say you're interacting with another person and they're not doing that exercise with you, they don't know that you are taking the time to say yes or no in your head, that's okay. It's okay to sit in silence for a little bit, for you to wait until you know the answer that's for you. It's okay for them to feel a little uncomfortable in an awkward silence. And it might not even be an awkward silence. A lot of times we think we need to respond right away. But you could probably count to like 6 Mississippi before the person really realizes that you've even paused. And that feels like a long time. That's actually a lot of space. And if you know it's going to take longer than that and you don't feel comfortable just kind of waiting in that moment, you can do things to create more time for yourself. You can say, like, actually, I don't know. Let me think about it. Let me get back to you. That sort of thing. So you can create space. And this especially works over virtual communication, right? It's easy to say, like, let me check my calendar. Let me get back to you, that sort of thing. And then asking these questions works with hypotheticals and future situations as well. So, and helps to identify your boundaries. So you can ask yourself, Do I want a hug from Cousin Jack on Thanksgiving? How does that feel in my body? Yes or no? And you can start to identify your boundaries before something happens. But something I want to mention, though, something that can easily cloud this communication, especially for us women, is all of the conditioning around doing what makes other people feel comfortable. We are taught to prioritize other people's needs, other people's comfort above our own. So sometimes we may not even know what we want. We might be asking these yes or no questions and it's just, I don't know. I have no idea. We may not know that something makes us uncomfortable because we're so used to just doing the thing that makes sense for other people. So have patience with yourself as you do this, and remember that you can always correct as you go along. You can always change course as you go along. Sometimes we need contrast in order to see something. So like sometimes you don't realize that you were hungry. Maybe you asked a yes or no. Oh no, I'm not hungry. And so you decided not to eat, but then someone else is eating right next to you and you realize, oh, actually, yeah, I am hungry. And so that's okay. And you're like, oh, okay, I am hungry. And then you can go get a snack and you can correct. You're not locked in to your initial decision. So get very clear with yourself, yes or no. Clarity is kindness. And that's kind of the phrase that I'd love for you to take away from this section. Clarity is kindness for yourself and with other people. So now going into the second question, how can I act in a way that makes me more comfortable and safe and enables me to develop a deeper awareness of the situation? So clarity is kindness once again. Remember that the majority of the time, people don't want to make you feel unsafe or uncomfortable. The majority of the time, right? So practice speaking your boundaries. We've worked on identifying our boundaries. Practice being clear with others as well. Clear and concise. So as little room for misinterpretation as possible, right? If we're driving and there's a stop sign, it says stop. It's not a huge sign that says like, oh, hey, it would be awesome if you could stop right now because I did some analysis on the flow of traffic, and between 3 and 5 p.m., if this stops, then it allows for pedestrians to go through. And so like, no, it just says stop, right? And obviously we're humans communicating or in relationship with each other. And so we're going to use more words than that because we want to be kind and all of that stuff. But a stop sign just says stop. It's very clear. It's very concise. So we know what to do. And you can still be polite, right? So, for example, I'm sure we've all encountered situations, maybe we're on vacation or something, and, you know, there's people wanting you to buy their stuff. And this happened to me in Egypt. People warned us pretty heavily that like, oh yeah, people are pretty intense, and they will try to get you into their shop and they won't want you to leave, like that sort of thing. And, you know, we heard stories and stuff like that of people feeling uncomfortable and things like that. And so, you know, we went in and we just decided to be very clear and very concise and still polite when this sort of thing happened to us. So somebody would like ask us to buy something and we just say, no, thank you. No, I'm not interested. No, thank you. And just keep repeating it, right? And that's not rude. It's still polite, but we are very clear in our intentions, like, nope, I'm not doing that. And that's all it needs to be. Yeah? So clarity is kindness. So I want us to practice being clear, and I want us to actually practice saying the word no and saying it out loud, because I think this is something that we all struggle with. It can be very scary to say no, and we feel like we need to protect the other person, but we come first, and our comfort and our safety comes first. So let's all just practice saying the word no. You don't have to think of a scenario in your head or anything, but just say the word no. 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 And you can expand it if you want. So no, I'm not interested. No, thank you. No. I won't be doing that. And breathe, stay calm with this, and know that this is just, there doesn't need to be any charge to it, right? It doesn't have to be, this is not the fight energy of like conflict, right? It's like, it can just be what it is. That's just your truth. No, I won't be doing that. And that also kind of helps, you know, maintain the energy, the calmness of the situation as well. And then when you are clear, you gain more information about the situation and safety levels. And I think Connie and Megan are going to talk a little bit more about that in the last section, that if somebody is not respecting your no's, it's very clear. If you say no and someone doesn't listen, that's very clear than if you are, you know, kind of beating around the bush and stuff like that. You know that you are clear and you know that they are disregarding that. And so that can give you more information about the situation and about how to respond. And the last kind of thing I want to remind everybody is that every adult is responsible for their own emotional regulation. Every adult is responsible for their own emotional regulation. They can feel disappointed. They can feel frustrated with your no, and that's okay. And so part of your awareness, right, there are people who don't have that emotional regulation, and it's not safe to kind of let them experience those emotions, right, because that might end up in violence. But if it feels safe, allow them that chance to regulate their own emotions. Allow them that chance, and don't let it sway your boundaries. But, you know, there are situations where you know from the get-go that it's not safe to communicate a boundary verbally. It's, you know, you're not even going to let them have that chance because you kind of know what their reaction is going to be, and that's okay too. Yeah. So keep practicing these things. Keep practicing with low stakes things. So practicing the yes or no questions to your body, the saying no. Practice in, you know, if you get it wrong, right, then it's fine. Yeah. And give yourself grace, be patient with yourself. And, you know, for all of this stuff, remember that, you know, nothing is your fault. You're not to blame if you choose something that wasn't the most effective or the most in line with how you want to be, like that sort of thing. It's all just your body doing what it needs to do to keep you safe. Keep breathing, keep creating time to choose, keep communicating with your body, and keep practicing taking action based on what is true for you. So now we're going to go into our physical martial application techniques, our self-defense techniques with Susan.
Hello. Today I'd like to offer some physical responses to uncomfortable or dangerous situations. All of our responses today will be different variations of one technique, so you don't have a lot to remember. You can just do this one physical technique and have different responses afterwards. It's an exercise that's been practiced for hundreds of years to develop balance, relaxation, and response. And it can help set healthy boundaries. So we're going to start by standing with our feet slightly apart and just breathing. So you're going to have your back straight and your head up as if suspended from above, and your knees just slightly bent. And just breathe in and breathe out. And then we're going to start turning our body. And it's a whole body motion. You're not thinking of doing anything except turning from your core and breathing in and out as you go. And if I could have some of our other teachers come and stand behind me, we'll do this together. We're just going to turn from side to side, remembering to breathe and relax into each move. And as you turn, you'll notice your arms start to swing from side to side. And you're going to let them swing. As you turn your body more, your arms will swing more. Always remembering to breathe, and all your motion comes from your center. You're using your whole body. You can vary this by turning your body up, and your arms will go up. Turning your body down, and your arms will go down. But just turn from side to side and breathe. Okay, thank you. I'm going to show you how this whole body motion can be turned into a self-defense technique and how effective it is in dealing with something. So Bill, if you would come help me with a focus mitt. I'm going to just use a slap, just an open hand. And if I just use my arm, I can do pretty well on the focus mitt, but you're not noticing a lot of movement. But if I do the side-to-side motion and let my arm swing into it, you'll see I get a lot more response. And this is what you want to use in all of your physical techniques that we use today. Sometimes the movement will be smaller, sometimes it will be bigger, but all of the time we're going to use our whole body. Okay, we're going to start with some uncomfortable social situations and just use this movement to define space, which is pretty much what we just did. Having an idea in your mind of this space that you get when you turn your body from side to side. And this space, you don't have to do it that way, but you're aware of what this space is. You've defined it for yourself. You can use it to define for others. And you can use it to turn into techniques for self-defense. We're going to illustrate it first walking through a crowd. So when you're walking through a crowd, it may not be close together. You may be close together, so you're not swinging your arms around, but you're still going to use your whole body movement to avoid confrontation. So if we could have people just walk towards me, and as they walk towards me, I'm just going to turn my body back and forth as I go. And you notice they're also doing that. So most of us do that in our normal life, but just think of that so you don't get into the situation where you're walking towards someone and you're who's going where. Just use your whole body motion to turn from side to side. The next thing I'm going to demonstrate, it will escalate a little bit from that. If someone wants to walk up and hug you, and for whatever reason you don't want the hug, it can be Cousin Jack at the Thanksgiving dinner that Rachel was talking about, or it can be anyone else, but you don't need to have someone embrace you if you don't want. And I call this movement the waltz movement because I'm in a position as if I were waltzing. And if Bill comes up to hug me, I put my hand out here in this waltz position and I turn it into, I just turn it into a handshake instead of the hug. And if Bill is great and just goes for that handshake, we're fine. But if I do this and he avoids my handshake, I can just go over the top and still get myself into this position side by side. If I do this and he still tries to pull me with him and take me someplace, I can use an extension under his arm. And the last one I'll demonstrate just one time is, I've done my waltz, and it doesn't work. And he comes to try to grab me. I can go with him that way and come back. So if we could try this with a couple of people. Hi, so nice to meet you. Oh, everybody wants to still get me. So you can notice that there's a lot of ways that you can handle that situation. None of them are aggressive or necessarily offensive to someone, and they don't escalate. You wait for the other person to determine how far you have to go. The next one I want to show is if I get into the handshake and go around, I will, if Rachel would help me, and I've got my handshake and it doesn't work, I can just go over her arm like this. Thanks. And the last one I'd like to show is if I'm either sitting down somewhere or standing up and someone comes up behind me and doesn't grab me. We're still in a social situation. I could be sitting at a bar with a drink. If Bill came up behind me and I'm sitting here and he's just getting too familiar. I don't want to necessarily create a scene, but I just put my hand up over his arm and turn around and say, no, stop. And that will usually stop the situation. As Rachel said, you have to be very clear with your no. It doesn't have to be aggressive, but it does have to stop the other person. As things escalate further, we're going to move on. Someone actually grabbing your arm, your wrist, or your shoulder. And we're going to show what's considered a grab release, first of all. So if someone wants to walk up and grab me cross-handed, and what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take my thumb and hand and just go up over the top and set my arm, my hand, right down on top of her arm. And as I do this, I'm once again going to turn to that same position to the side and be friends. And if this is all that we have, we're fine now because Connie's not being aggressive and I don't have to go any further than that. But let's say I do this and Rachel grabs me. And I do this and Rachel tries to grab me and take me over out the door. And I'm going to once again just extend my motion. I'm going this side and then this side. If I do the same thing to Megan, I've done my grab release, turned this way, and back this way. And next from this grab, we're going to make the same progression that we made last time of someone trying to get me after I've done the grab release. Who wants to get me? And I do this, and I just let them go the way they want to go, and then they'll go back the other way. So you notice that side-to-side motion. I don't have to think of any technique. I just keep going side to side. What if they come up and grab my sleeve? On this one, I'm going to do the same side-to-side motion, but I'm going to do where we go up. I think of it like somebody in classroom that is really eager. Call on me, teacher, teacher, call on me. And you go around like this way, and back this way, and it's like a football carry. I'm just carrying my football. If Megan wants to come from the other side, side to side. And this one you can actually lead someone out the door without hurting them. And the last one I'm going to demonstrate in this section is if someone grabs my hair. The important thing to remember when someone grabs your hair is to secure their hand onto your hair, because you don't want to be trying to pull away and pulling out your hair. So once you've done that, there's really no technique that you have to think of. You can just start your side-to-side motion. Go here, go here, go here until the movement stops. And all of a sudden, she doesn't want to grab my hair anymore. If you grab my hair from the front, I'll do the same thing. Secure, turn, turn, turn. Thank you. So you can see that you don't have to think of a technique, you just have to think of turning side to side like this. The next thing we're going to move on to is it will escalate a little bit. And from this escalation, the example we're going to use is a bear hug from behind. And for this, it's really necessary to be yielding and relentless, somewhat like we were with the hair grab. You can't try to pull away because you'll pull your attacker down on top of you. And you can't expect to just go side, side and get away. You have to sink into it and keep moving back and forth. And it might take a long time. To use with this as we move along, I want to introduce a couple of actual physical strikes. The first one is an elbow strike with your side-to-side motion. As I turn this way, I'm going to make a fist and put my hand on the fist. And as I turn back, I'm going to strike behind me, strike behind me, strike behind me, strike behind me. As I move side to side, it's not my arm that's doing the technique, it's my side-to-side motion that's doing the technique, my body that's doing it. We can also do an elbow strike like that from in front. Turning, 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 turning all the way to the back, turning all the way to the front. You can add the slap like we did on the focus mitt. And you can add the heel of your palm. And this can be used once again behind you, if someone comes up behind you, or in front of you as you turn side to side. So with the bear hug, Bill, do you want to grab me for a bear hug? As he grabs me, I'm going to sink and just start to turn side to side. It gets a little bit hard to get away, but eventually I get a little bit more movement and I can turn around and get right back into this position that we did on the first two situations. If he grabs me, and I'm using my sink and my side-to-side motion, and I get here, get to this position, I can use my extension. If Rachel grabs me, I do the same side-to-side motion. And I can turn back. So all the things that we used before will work once I've used my side-to-side motion to get away, my whole body motion. Talk about if it starts to not work, I can add my elbow strikes and my palm heel strikes to this if I need it to get away. So Bill, if you want me to elbow and palm heel you. As he comes, I'm going to turn, and I'm not having any luck, even though I've sunk and I'm turning side to side. So I'm going to add this elbow, elbow, palm heel to it. So if we could demonstrate that again, Connie. Elbow, elbow, elbow. It might take a lot of times, but eventually I'm going to get there. Someone else want to try? So here we are. I'm turning. She's relentless, so I have to be relentless. Just going as soon as I feel resistance, I'm just going to turn back the other way. Then I'm going to add the elbow. Oh, she's letting go quickly. So you can add things, responses to your whole body movement that help extend your time, your effectiveness. The last technique we're going to work on is chokes from in front. And on chokes, what we're going to work on, once again, is sinking and relaxing. You never want to fight against a choke because you're in real danger of the choke. So if Bill chokes me, What I want to do once again is sink, and with my turn, I'm going to go over his arm, under his arm, and once again to this position. And then I have all my options from this position. I can go into an extension. If he tries to grab me, I can bring him around and come back the other way. So I have all my options. If Bill gets a little hard to get rid of with his choke, I'm just going to add the slap slap like I did on the focus mitt. If we could demonstrate that on Rachel. I'm not getting away. Slap, slap, slap. Just add the slaps. It's not doing anything different. It's just the exercise we practiced at the beginning of the class. You can also add the same up through the middle to a football carry, if Bill does it, that we did earlier. So I'm going to turn this way, and my arm goes up the center. I'm going to turn back this way, and I'm going to turn back this way. And I've got my football again, and I can lead Bill off the mat. So in summing up, what we talked about today was our whole body movement. That's what I'd like you to take home, that you don't try to fight someone off with pulling away or using your arms. You use your whole body. You sink, you yield, and you have a response. We did it to chokes and bear hugs and grabs and social situations. Remember that it's always a self-defense situation is what happens before, what happens during an altercation, and what happens afterwards. And they're all equally important. So I'd like to turn it over to Connie and Megan to talk about options about what you can do after a traumatic situation.
Well, thank you, Susan. Some great techniques, and I think let's revisit those gathering breaths on this. We talked about this last week. Sometimes when we do these exercises, if you were doing them with somebody else, sometimes they can dredge up some memories or make you uncomfortable in whatever way. So we would like to counter that sympathetic nervous system reaction, your fight or flight, with a little bit of parasympathetic. Slow down the breathing, slow down the heart rate so that the oxygen can go back up to your brain. And really, this is not, it's not so much countering, because it's not like a stoplight. It's like, oh, we're going to trigger this and then we're going to trigger this one. No, it's not like that. We are just trying to bring your nervous system back into balance and enable you to have the best performance you can to make your next move, whether that is to get away in a self-defense situation, whether it is to judge a situation that you are getting into, whatever it may be. So let's just do it real quick. So we'll do 3 gathering breaths, and we are gathering because we want you to see us breathing.
So everybody stand up.
Yep, everybody stand up.
We're all breathing.
So we're gonna breathe in through our nose and breathe out through our mouth. And we are going to focus that into our belly breathing, so that our belly goes out, belly goes back in, as opposed to our chest, because we want to bring that oxygen deep down into our core. So breathing in, we're going to breathe in, and we're going to focus on our Zen word that is going to get you into the zone, which hopefully you can incorporate into perhaps a mindfulness practice so that your body recognizes it quickly. So breathing in. Breathing out. 1. I'm choosing the word 1 as my cue. You can use whatever word you like. 2. 1. Breathing in. Breathing out. 1. So we're trying to stay relaxed, focused on our word, so that our awareness of our surroundings is heightened. So we've calmed ourselves down. We talked about awareness and indicators. Rachel talked about trusting yourself to know what those indicators are. But
Indicators within our own bodies.
it's complicated, isn't it? So there's a whole set of indicators. You have your environmental indicators. Those are a little bit more obvious. Okay, it's dark. Indicator, something, who knows what's out there. 2,
Your familiarity with your environment. If you're unfamiliar, you're going to be a little bit more alert.
3, who's around you? Are they big and scary, or are they not big and scary? That's something.
Do you know them well? Are they behaving erratically?
What time is it? Is it the middle of the day, or is it 3 in the morning? Lots of different things can go into an environment. Is there alcohol? Is there any sort of substance that is in the equation?
And everyone's environment is going to be a little bit different, right? What might be an indicator in one scenario will not necessarily be something you flag in another.
And then there's also the relational indicators too. And that can get loaded just depending on who you're with. We have done this in our classes, and it's really interesting to see how when we talk about relational indicators, how many different things can come up, who sees what in a situation. And so getting back to Rachel's awareness as to where you feel comfortable, what is comfortable for you, what is not comfortable for you, and practicing that and making it part of your mindfulness every day really comes into play.
I think we often talk about indicators in way of when you're walking down the dark alley, is there a man at the other end? Is he holding a weapon? That could be a problem.
Is his hands in his
But we
pockets?
also want to challenge you to think about the indicators within less outwardly nefarious situations. It might be the people around you. Are they respecting your boundaries? Are they accepting the word no?
Is it so Rachel mentioned Thanksgiving. So let's say you're at a large family gathering and maybe there's hugging going on. Is everybody aware of that? Is that a common thing? Do people hug all in the same way? Do they not hug in the same way? Do hands go where they should not go? That's an indicator.
And regardless of all of that, is it something you're comfortable with? Because at the end of the day, you have an absolute right to your own boundaries.
So if somebody comes in for that hug, and it is the Thanksgiving situation or the family gathering, you can always say, nope.
No, thank you.
Yep. So.
Or the trick that Susan just showed you. We're going to shake hands and walk over here.
Yes. Or you can throw him down the stairs, as she also demonstrated. So boundaries and accepting no. Accepting no. You say no, and they keep coming. Indicator. Do they not accept your no over the smallest things?
That could be family, it could be friends. It's not necessarily just strangers. And it doesn't mean that they're a terrible person or that the relationship must end.
Sometimes
being able to hold your boundaries.
Yeah, sometimes some nefarious people of whatever level will test those boundaries to see where you are with the boundaries. Are you comfortable with your boundaries being crossed? Do you accept that you said no and then they kept going? That can happen. Same with secrets. Are they able to tell you something, and something small, but just between us?
Are they expecting you to keep secrets that maybe feel uncomfortable or inappropriate to hold?
They can start small. They don't have to be anything big. They can be just between us. We're just going to do this, but just between us. The secrets can build. So
it could be something, we live in an age of social media. It could be some stranger reaching out to you over social media and trying to interact or find more personal details. And what we really want to get down to is holding those boundaries, because at the end of the day, clarity is kindness, as Rachel said.
Yes. Trust your gut. Trust your gut and build that skill to just start looking for things. If I think of this like a movie. we have said before that we know how to do this, right? We know how to do this, and that's at a basic level. We know these self-defense skills already. It's already in our nature. And maybe you're in a situation, if you are in a situation, please refer to our website for the resources. But there are basic things that we know just in living our everyday, whatever it took to get you to this point where you're watching this video, you have survived this far. And so we are trying to meet you where you are and help you build on those skills.
Because clarity is kindness. It works for establishing your own boundaries with other people, but it also use that for yourself. Hindsight is 20/20. Maybe we know that this isn't a good thing to do. Maybe we know that we're not happy with that reaction, but being able to decide that after the fact in a safe space where you can think clearly is not the same as having to make that decision in a snap in the moment.
And that's, it's where community comes into it. It's kind of nice to have, you're going to trust your gut, but sometimes are you questioning your gut? Are you wondering, okay, am I crazy? Did Uncle so-and-so actually just, do that? Maybe you want to just go talk to somebody. So Rachel talked about, creating connections. Maybe you talk to somebody in your community about, hey, that was kind of, am I crazy? But that was kind of weird, right?
I'm uncomfortable with that.
I'm uncomfortable with that. And it could be that, yes, no, that was completely weird and should not deal with that.
And even if they don't, if you're uncomfortable with something, you're uncomfortable with something. And that's the only thing that matters. Mm-hmm. We are inherently safer as a community when we are looking out for each other. When you have somebody who's watching out for you and you for them. If you're walking home at night from work, it might feel better to know that somebody is expecting you or that somebody knows where you are.
Mm-hmm. Well, they noticed if your car was not in the driveway, perhaps. And it works both ways, right? So it's not like they are just going to know everything about you. You need to ask them. Maybe reach out, go out, take out the garbage, say hi to the neighbor. Maybe have small conversations. If you don't have a community, maybe go find it. You can join a community like this. You can join a club.
You've joined our community
your
by
school,
being here.
Your class. They always tell you in school, right? Go join the clubs. It creates a community. So,
and getting into that, if maybe you don't have an immediate community, look at how you can build that community. And look at the people within your community. How we treat each other is something you're constantly building on. Mm-hmm. People who hurt other people do not just appear. Mm-hmm. They're built. They're built through enabling. They're built through anger or resentment. Mm-hmm. They're built through dismissal.
And you can help form that community because let's say somebody in your immediate community says something that just doesn't rub you quite the right way. You just don't think it's quite appropriate. That is when you question them. And you question them right from the get-go so that they know that that is not okay in what you consider a good community. Because if things slide, it's like goes back to secrets, right? If you let things slide, they build. And that goes with communities as well.
It is so much easier to set your boundaries at smaller levels than it is when it gets larger and can grow into something a little bit more pervasive. Mm-hmm.
So we're wrapping up. If you have any questions, send them in the chat. I don't know, do we have time for questions? At some point we have to have time for questions, so we'll have to stop talking sooner. Were there any questions? Okay, right. We're tight on time.
For next time.
So we are going to refer you, please, if you haven't liked us so far, like us on YouTube and subscribe, and then referring to our website for any resources that you might have. And thank you again for your time.
We're going to bring out Rachel and Susan.
Oh, bring out Rachel and Susan, yes. And Bill. Where's Bill left? And here we go. Right. And thank you for joining us in our community.